Welcome to Law Chat with Girja, my entrepreneur friends. I'm Girja Parka Patel, and I'm a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a businesswoman, a lawyer, and an entrepreneur, just like you. I believe in the power of storytelling and mentorship through stories. Whether 6 months in or 20 years in their journey, entrepreneurs have impactful experiences to share, which are full of mistakes and full of victories. And my goal is to highlight those and to celebrate the diverse narratives and perspectives in the world of entrepreneurship, which inevitably provides motivation, encouragement, and inspiration to our community and to our own journey. So Law Chat's purpose is not just to share the expected conversations about their businesses and journey, but also I want to share and dive deep into their details. Get nosy, get personal, and learn from their pivotal journey and their mistakes, and also, again, their victories. So I'm here to use those moments to inspire and to motivate you on your own journey. And of course, we can't run away from the law. After all, this is Law Chat with Girja. So let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for today's Law Chat episode with our guest, Sukaina Rajani. It's so special to have her on Law Chat today because not only is she my friend, but she's a total boss. She's the founder and owner of Macaron by Patisse, which is hands down the best macarons in town and maybe in the nation. I can vouch for that too. She has created a mark for herself, but she's also created a mark for macarons. And I feel like she kind of pioneered that in Houston, at least for us. She is creative and she's a hard worker. And I'm so happy to have her here because her grace and love for the business and for her community is evident in every single day of her life. So welcome to Law Chat, Sukaina. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you. That was like the most amazing introduction I've ever gotten. Thank you. You're here everywhere we go.
You're so sweet. I mean, it's true though, because we've been friends for a while now, not just like 2 years. And while those friendships are also amazing, but it's so nice to have old friendships where you've seen each other grow and you've seen each other blossom and really flourish and become the woman you're supposed to be or the man you're supposed to be. And I feel like that's kind of happened with both of us. Like I've seen you grow, you've seen me grow, and it's such a special bond that we share with one another.
I couldn't agree more. And I think having that history really it's almost a reminder of like where we came from, right? Because oftentimes you kind of forget because you live this day-to-day new norm and this is our baseline now. But when you like sit back and reflect, and I'm so glad I'm doing this reflection with you today, you really do go back to where you started.
Yeah, exactly. And then also the places where you kind of had a slump. And you meeting anybody, me too. And you're kind of like, wow, how did I get out of there? And then you have your friends to say, hey, you did it, you got it. And then cheering you on and supporting you. I think it's just so beautiful to have that and to be able to grow with one another. So thank you. And I'm so glad you're here. We can talk. And so, Law Chat's all about sharing stories and teaching one another through the stories, especially entrepreneurs, because I feel like sometimes we can be so alone in what we're doing. And so I wanted to have a platform where we can share stories, but also diverse stories, because we all share the love of what we're doing, the passion of entrepreneurship. And a lot of times we face the same challenges, they're just clothed differently. So tell me, where did Sukaina come from? Where did Sukaina start? Like what happened? Where are you? How did you come from? Where did you come from? I just want to hear everything from the beginning. It sounded so funny.
Came from her mother's womb. I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
From Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So I know you've been to Jasper, and I come from a beautiful part of Canada, which I totally took for granted growing up. But I was born and raised there. Parents are of Pakistani origin. And I did all my school there. I went to the University of Alberta. I did my first bachelor's in pharmacology, so I was a total science nerd. I think I still am. Did another degree in secondary ed. I did my started my master's in rehab med. And then life happened. And when I say life happened, I had a semi-arranged marriage. I say semi, especially now that there's that Indian matchmaking show. I feel like I don't know how I should like preface There was a good matchmaker then. I did not have Seema Auntie come to my house.
Oh my God.
But
that can be a whole episode on its own. Let's talk about Indian matchmaker.
I just watched one episode so far and I thought that was so wild. but definitely like highlighted and brought up emotions that, of course, you know, we experience in cities, but that's a different topic. So I grew up in Edmonton, had some family friends that introduced me to their nephew who lived in Houston. At the time, my parents had me talk to a few different young men around. Houston just kind of fit at the time. And before I knew it, I moved to Houston. And the plan was for me to do grad school here and kind of grow with my new husband and evolve as a couple while still pursuing my education. Kind of pretty traditional within our community.
Right.
It was the arranged marriage. Again, it wasn't like my parents put a gun to my head and said, this is who you're going to. There was an introduction. We got to know each other, albeit it was short and long distance. And I think I was pretty young. I didn't really know exactly what it was that I was looking for, what I wanted. And oftentimes arranged marriages work great, right? My parents literally met once and they're attached at the hip, and you've seen them. They're like little lovebirds.
Yeah.
So it can work. It just, when we first got together properly, we realized that we were great on paper and just not great in real life.
Right.
And so at that point, it happened pretty soon. We realized this pretty soon after our marriage. And culturally, again, normally the girl goes back to live with her family, right? So I was supposed to make that move back to Canada up north. But in the midst of that time, I had opened up my own holistic wellness and nutrition practice.
Oh, wow.
So being the complete science nerd that I am, when I moved to Houston, I ended up having a lot of like stomach issues. And my brother also suffers from Crohn's disease. And amidst all that research and doing all that stuff, I actually met this woman in Virginia who did food sensitivity testing, meridian stress assessments using acupuncture points. And so with that, I just became so enthralled, started researching, started learning, started my master's online in holistic wellness and nutrition, ended up shadowing her for a while, opening up a clinic in Houston. And at that point it was like, mommy, daddy, like I just started this. I need you to give me a shot. Like,
And were you still married at this time, or had you?
I was not.
Okay.
I started it like at the cusp of our divorce, and then here. So it was located inside of a yoga studio very close to my house. That's what really got me into teaching yoga too, because I was there and randomly they needed a sub and they're like, you've taken this class enough times, let's just do this.
Yeah.
And yoga training, teaching yoga. And so that's where my life kind of started in Houston. That's where when I think about where my personal journey started, I truly was then. It was when I didn't have my parents here, not to say that they would have hindered me in any way. In fact, it was because of them that I had the support to be able to do what I did. Mm-hmm. It was like true independence that I felt like I attained, and I was able to direct my life the way that I wanted, which was something I maybe didn't do before.
Right.
So that's kind of where Sukaina started. From the clinic, I started making macarons for some of the young kids that would come see me. So I ended up specializing with a lot of children that were either on the autism spectrum or were diagnosed with ADD, ADHD. Mm-hmm. And so I would have them come in for these assessments, and literally, Girja, I'd have to give them like this little brass mask that they'd hold, and like I test their food sensitivities. And the thing with that is when they're so heavily medicated, literally these kids like turn into zombies, and it just like broke my heart. And so the goal was to ultimately get them off these meds and, you know, a very whole and fulfilling life without them. And so we were able to get that like 6 months, 8 months. It was a journey, you know, there was no instant gratification. And one of the things I wanted them to have, instead of this like crazy person who told them to have kale and pineapple smoothies all day, was right, like something I could give them.
Yeah.
And so I looked for macarons because I knew that they would be gluten-free, color-free, preservative-free if done right. And I looked all over the city and I found a few, but because people weren't into like the macaron culture here, horrible. Like they were, and the thing with macarons is, in all honesty, freshness matters. Like they go stale within a day, and you know this.
Right.
The first day, they're super fresh. Second day, they're good. Third day, you're like, not really as exciting. I'm not paying $2.50 a macaron, right?
Yeah.
And, anyway, 3:00 in the morning when I couldn't sleep. And at that time, the reason for my lack of sleep was culturally going through a divorce was really hard on me. Yeah. And I always say this, I know it sounds silly now, but back then what kept me up was this idea that I would die alone. Like, oh my God, who's going to want to like get to know me? What are these aunties doing? How are my parents coping with this? Yeah. It was like all of this like running through my head. And so at 3:00 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, I'm like, let me try making macarons. Totally wild. Pretty sure my neighbors hated me because I had 3 KitchenAid mixers running on high at 3:00 in the morning in an apartment with probably thin walls, but that's what I did. And I had a little chart on the fridge, manipulated variable, responding variable. And then one day it worked. And I was like, oh my God, this worked. But I will say, your sister-in-law was the one to try all my like really terrible ones that did not even look like macarons. They look like tops. But she graciously ate them and was so kind about it. But yeah, that was kind of the start of the whole journey.
I know. And I think it's so interesting because I feel like, you're Pakistani descent. I have an Indian descent heritage, but I think cultural plays such a role in who we are today and how we have evolved. And, of course, people who are not familiar with the South Asian culture, they sometimes, they get what they see on TV. Like, honestly, like this, Indian matchmaker would be one of those things. Not to say that some of this stuff is not realistic. It truly is. But, to really understand it, though, you have to be understanding the culture. And just like how you said that, your parents were not a hindrance. They were your backbone. And they really helped you pivot at that time when you were emotionally going through such a huge struggle in life and a challenge. But I feel like your parents are your anchor, but what else is your anchor when you feel the challenges that are coming to you? What other aspects of your life is where you're like, this is what I lean on when I have problems and I have challenges?
Actually a really good question. I will tell you, primarily, you mentioned it, it's family. Like, I would not be here without them. This would not be possible. They are still very much involved. They've actually moved from Canada to Houston.
Yeah. And they're like the cutest. I love your mom.
Everyone calls her Mama Patisse or like mom, even like my employees that are older than her, which I think is hilarious, or even the ones either way. So it's been really good to have them here. In all honesty, I think that for me, I think faith. Mm-hmm. Faith is huge. I'm not an entirely religious person. So yes, I grew up in a Muslim household. I'm not entirely religious, but I am spiritual.
Right.
And I think it's my belief that everything that's happening is happening for a reason. This is a journey I'm meant to take. This is a path that's happened or a path that I'm taking because there is a lesson to be learned. And I think that as I've matured, I've been able to reflect on it a lot more. I think back, if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I'd be like, I don't know why this happened to me. I would totally play victim to this, right? Like, why am I the one that got divorced? Why am I the one struggling with this? Why did I have to go through this? Why did my shop get delayed 10 months and build up? Why did, just little things. But at the end of the day, if you ask me today, I think every little hiccup that I go through, every little obstacle for me, I'm like, there's a learning lesson in this. Like, what am I supposed to do? And also a big part of me believes that if I don't learn something from it, it's going to happen again. So I better and maybe learn something a little bit faster than I did the last 50 times so that I can move on with this lesson and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I agree. I think like a lot of times, just like how you had mentioned all these different challenges that you had with your business and your personal life, a lot of times we look at it as failure. And as entrepreneurs, we look at it as failure too, because we don't really always have someone to say, hey, this happens all the time, or don't you worry, we got this. So when you were looking, especially when you were pivoting from, the holistic wellness, healthcare that you provided, and you went into, making macarons and being this amazing pastry chef, how did you pivot and what was it that you leaned on at that time? And I mean, I know that we talked about faith, we talked about parents, but what was the mindset that you had when you were pivoting from this amazing practice that you had where you were helping children and now you have this brick and mortar? Like, how did you do that?
Pivot, right? And I think a big part of it is that it happened very organically. Something that happened so naturally that I almost didn't have time to think about how I was going to make the transition happen. The other thing I'll tell you that I think is super important, I think it's important for all entrepreneurs, I think it's a thing that sets apart successful entrepreneurs from non-successful ones, is your confidence. It's your self-esteem. You believing in yourself before anything else, right? Yes, you'll have doubts. Yes, you'll second guess yourself. At the end of the day, if you believe in what you're doing, it's almost like you kind of are like, okay, I'll deal with that other part, And at that moment, I was kind of private catering from my apartment. Of course, culturally, again, if anyone can relate to this, I had this fear I was turning into this like auntie that immigrated from another country and was cooking and baking things from home and selling them. I mean, everyone knows that auntie, right?
Yes.
Part of it was like, I could not turn into this. Like it was, and it's not that what they did is bad or what they do.
No, we need those aunties, but yeah.
I never make a round auntie for the life of me, and I appreciate them for all. There was a little like bit of me that's like, but I did this and I have this education and I imagined this for my life and this is what I'm doing. So I think that all in all, like everything kind of happened organically, but when the pivot actually needed to happen and the fear started setting in, it was because I was so passionate about it. I knew that this was something that I really wanted to do. I tested the market. Again, it's not ignorance, right? Like I think false confidence is also very hurtful, right? I think it has to be like an educated confidence. It has to be one where, yes, I've looked at all the details. I've looked at all the things that could go wrong. I've tried to minimize these negative aspects. And now I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge.
Right, right. That's so true, because sometimes we think less, we move forward far quickly. And later on, you're like, oh, that was not a good idea. But then again, it's a learning moment. And, you went through that. What were some challenges that you faced during that big pivot? Because it really was a pivot. It wasn't just adapting to something new.
No, it was. And one of the other things I forgot to mention, and that came to me while you were speaking, was my network. Like the people around me were instrumental. So my family wasn't there at the time. But my friends and the network that I had, like if I needed anything, it was like, I need a plumber. I had 14 people bring me a plumber. I need like someone who helped me with this like legal contract, which I told you was the thing that I hated the most. I had people bring me that. I felt like my relationships that I had formed over the years without even realizing that those relationships would be ones that would help me were the ones that truly ended up being like my pillar of support.
Yeah.
And so to bring it back to your question, which was what was
challenges, but just to point a little bit on the networking part, I think it's so true. As I went to undergrad, I did business at UT Austin, and one of the best lessons of my life while I was in the upper division classes was networking. If you had the right people on your team, you were going to ace that class. So it's all about networking and all about collaborating with other teams, because it was definitely not a Soul Ranger type of a moment there. And that was something that has stayed with me forever, because you have to give though to get. So you have to cultivate those relationships, and then you can make that ask. And it's not even like a very purposeful ask. It's organic because you've put in so much without any conditions. And I think that's with you also, you did that, right? Even now you do that, but now you do it in a different impact, right? Before it was different because our seasons change in life. So I agree with you. Networking is huge. It's so important as an entrepreneur. And if you don't have one, please go start one.
Oh, absolutely. Also, culturally, it was not something that we talked about too much within our community, right? We know everyone in the community. We kind of do our thing in our community, but like it was never a thing, at least not for me growing up, where I would go to these events and like meet people and, self-promote. I think we also have a modesty issue. And so it was really hard for me to come out of my shell and do that. But you're totally right. It was because I just gave and gave. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, don't go to networking events thinking that you're going to meet someone who's just going to give you something. Like you should be there and give everyone else. And then once a need arises, it'll automatically come to you.
I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately. And they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now back to our awesome conversation.
I completely agree with you. Even now, like online, on the online space, if you just keep giving without any conditions, without any strings attached, I mean, it just flourishes, I think. It just comes back in twofold, if not tenfold. So I totally agree with you. So actually what my question originally was, before we sidetracked, which is totally fine, was the challenges that you faced while you were making the change from your healthcare practice to macaroons and a brick and mortar.
So the challenges were, in all honesty, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I literally was like, I'm going to open a shop. And now I had like a lease on a space and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like no one a space. I don't think people realize like the steps involved and getting like a open, like it is a lot. And so, you think, oh, I'm just going to find this perfect little space, which by the way, that also took forever. But you find the space and then it's permitting, and then it's architect, and then it's like back to permitting, then it's back to your MEPs. And so I really had no idea what I was doing. That was really the hardest part. And then the overwhelm that comes from that, and then feeling like, oh my God, did I just kind of jump in and really like do myself a disservice because I really don't know what I'm doing? And then I'll tell you my biggest challenge that happened that was the most frightful thing, and you'll probably laugh at it now. But again, so we get this shop done. I'll be a little delayed, but we get it done. We had construction issues just like any other business. No big deal. Things are normal. Okay. So now we have this beautiful kitchen. Right now I've been baking out of my apartment. So now I'm like, oh my God, I have this industrial. This is amazing. And I go to make my first batch of macarons. Fail. I'm like, I'm sorry, what just happened here?
Oh my gosh.
Fail. Third batch.
No
fail.
way.
What's going on? Well, I guess now humidity is different there. Like whatever I figured out in my home kitchen.
Oh no.
So temperamental that whatever I figured out or spent all this time developing in my kitchen, now I have to redevelop in this giant kitchen. And day after day, day after day.
Wow.
I could not repivot my recipe. And I literally was like, this is why people don't open macaron shops in Houston. Like, no wonder. I should have just paid attention. No one else opened one. Why did I think I could? Like,
oh my gosh. I think legitimately you were the first macaroons shop.
And I was wondering who does this. Like, they must have tried. And I mean, I didn't pay attention. And I'm like, Houston's the most in the world.
I'm like mind blown right now, by the way, because this is like something you just never think about. Right? But then unless you experience it and now you can actually tell someone else who's about to open a bakery, hey buddy, listen, make sure this is like this.
Your recipes. So I do that and I just can't make it work. I've probably wasted about $10,000 worth of almond meal, which is almond flour, because it just keeps going in the garbage. And I'm just like in tears every day.
Oh
now,
gosh.
my parents have moved or come. They haven't moved here. They're visiting here because we're supposed to, as soon as I can get these macarons done, it's open. We've already been delayed. Let's get the doors open. Well, how can I open if I don't have a product? So I decided to tell myself that I was going to fast until I took a good right? Like the whole thing. Suddenly religion plays a part. It's wild, right? Okay.
It's so, like, so classic.
Oh my God. Like I've tried everything else. Like, you're up there. I need you to have it. So, and fasting, when I say it, there's no food, water from sunrise to sunset, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I do it for the first day. It doesn't work. Second day, it doesn't work. Third day, I'm fasting. And I'm like, seriously, like big guy up there, if you're there, like I need this to work. And I literally tell my parents, I'm like, I don't think this is going to work. Like maybe let's get an eye put on the sign and import macaroni from like Italy or something. Like I don't know what to do here. Like
import macaroni. Wow.
By Patisse. I'm like, let's make it macaroni by Patisse and like call it a day. Like I was just feeling
that
defeated.
Is so funny.
And I remember sitting on the floor of my kitchen and, you know, like everyone had their 2 cents to give me, right?
Yeah.
My parents, my brother.
Yeah.
I actually had some pastry chefs in Houston that I had like gotten to know to come in and help me. And they were like, why would we help you? But whatever, that was a different story. And so I'm like sitting there trying to like play with every variable I possibly can. Well, anyways, that night, I'm about to break my fast and my dad comes there. I'm sitting on the floor of my kitchen just crying. My dad hands me these macarons that he just bought from another bakery. And I'm like, that's rude. Like, macarons when I'm struggling to make mine. I just want you to taste them.
Oh, okay.
Like, okay. So I like bite into it and I'm like, this is disgusting. Like they were just really bad. And my dad, the ones that you're throwing away are better than this. So stop away. Just, there might not be perfect. Just open the doors. Like
I love that. I love that.
Being the perfectionist that I am, of course I didn't open my doors unless I had this stellar product. I'm also in River Oaks. It better be stellar. I know that walking through that door, you know? And so here I was like, no, but then I didn't have a choice. My rent was ridiculous. I'd already been paying it. So I had to make the call to do it. And if you actually look at my pictures on social media, which I should probably take down, if you look at the pictures like right at the beginning to like a month later, like I feel sorry for the people that came in that first month. And I'm so grateful that they were.
No, they were, I feel like I was one of those people that came and I just can't even tell the difference. So, and I think that's such a great point that you brought is that perfection can never be achieved, by the way. I literally just I posted that this other week and it's so true because even I believe that I'm always running after perfection, being in the legal profession especially. And I think like, it's just so unachievable though. And it's just like, and each time you do it amazing, you want to do it better, which is great. That's a great aspiration to do everything better, to have a better version of yourself and all that great stuff. but achieving perfection should not be the prerequisite to start.
Well,
you just need to start.
That level of perfectionism, which I think a lot of type A people have in common, that are entrepreneurs, can be very paralyzing, I find.
Yeah.
You almost are hindered. You can't take the next step. You won't make the next step.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm in that phase right now with another business that I want to launch, or another aspect of my life that I'm planning on launching in the next couple of months. But I've been paralyzed, not because I don't have the knowledge base, not because I don't have the content, literally because I'm like, well, I'm not happy with that brand.
Oh.
Like, you know, and then I think about it. I'm like, who cares? I can adapt that. Like, let's just put this out there because I know what people need right now, what I need right now. But like, it is, I think that thinking about being perfect is just going to paralyze you. And I think it's important to put yourself out there and just do it. If you're passionate about it, if you feel like you have the base, just do it.
Absolutely. And you know what, Sukaina, whatever you're planning on launching in the next couple months, I promise you it's going to be amazing, because a person like me or anybody else, your audience, we won't know it better than you, right? You've already done the research. You've already done everything. And so whatever you put out there will be awesome. And then of course you can adapt and change and evolve as time goes, right? But
it does. I mean, if we don't, your business is probably going to fail very quickly, right? I mean, we're learning that. We learned that the hard way with COVID.
Yeah.
We have to be adaptable. We have to be flexible, and we have to be able to pivot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also growth. That's what brings growth. That's a growth mindset, you know? So just going back to those original challenges that you had though, how did you get out of those challenges? What was the mindset that you needed in order to navigate yourself out of the, you know, the trenches at that time?
Failure is not an option. Like when you've gone ahead and signed all these legal documents that signed my life away along with my lease, and I spent on my packaging and my oven and my display cases and all that stuff, like no one has money to throw away. It doesn't matter, you know, what you come from, how much money you have. Like nobody likes to just throw money away. Yeah. And I did not come from money. So like that wasn't the situation in my mind. It's like my parents' retirement funds. And so if I lost them, we would be in a very bad predicament right now. So for me, it was a matter of like failure was not an option. And then literally everyone came to support me. Like everyone helped make the points that I didn't know how to work happen.
That's awesome. You're right. Failure is not an option. But then just in between the lines though, as failure is not an option and you're still moving forward, it's still hard. And even today, I'm sure you face such challenges and failure is still not an option. So what are some other tips you can give to entrepreneurs to help them navigate through those issues or problems that they might be facing?
I think, okay, so let me go back a little bit, because you know, I know that the term fail, when I say failure is not an option, it also doesn't mean that you can't fail. And I think failure word has been very much analyzed and scrutinized. And when I say failure, it doesn't necessarily mean like the end of it all, right? Just with the growth mindset, it's something that happens and you evolve, and it happens because it wasn't the right thing, right? So you have to find the right answer. But what I would tell people is to really use the resources around them. Like there's nothing out there that you can't get information for. I mean, the World Wide Web on its own is like magnificent, but with the way that we're able to connect even on social media these days, like how many people can reach out to you, Girja, for any type of legal questions or random things? Yeah. Like it's just, there's so much more access. Before, fine, we'd have the web and we'd have to look them up, call their office, like get a consult. These days, information is just so much more accessible. So when you're doing this, reach out to people. Don't feel bad about it. I think if the right person, they're gonna be like us, like gracious with our information and give you what you want. The other aspect of it is find people that have done what you want to do. I think, again, if they're people that are successful and gracious minded, they're gonna sit there and be like, listen, this is what you need to look out for. This is what, you know, I just, oftentimes we feel like we need to do everything ourselves. I'm a victim of that, right?
Yeah.
Like do it myself and delegate it to someone. Even that's what makes me not such a great business person. But, you know, I feel like we just don't use when we have access.
I love that. Do you have any mentors? Do you reach out to certain people or coaches or a group of women, a mastermind group or something? Do you have that also in your life?
Everything. I feel like I have a little bit of all of that, because the thing is, there's no one person that can cover every single aspect of my life. And look at my life, I don't look at my business as independent of my life, and I don't look at my life as independent of that. I feel like everything is kind of together. This whole work-life balance, I don't really believe in that anymore. I believe in work-life integration. Everything comes together. If you love what you do, it becomes a part of your life becomes a part of that. There's gonna be times when this is high, this is low, that, you know, I don't believe in this like balancing act in that sense anymore. And I'm isolating the two because that's not what life is anymore. And so I feel like I have mentors that I look at or ask questions when it comes to like business development, going ahead and growing my business, the financial aspects of it. I have different people that I love sitting down and talking to and being like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about for this next business. I need a brainstorming session. Let's think of strategy. I want to get your feedback on this. Does this sound woo-woo? Does this sound right? Does this feel I want that feedback because I run this in my brain all day long until I go crazy. But like, it's so nice to have a group of people that I can go to that can give me that type of feedback. And then I have people that I know I lean on when I need that spiritual boost, like someone who's like, you need to like go and meditate for a bit. And this is a really great way to do this. And you know, I feel like all of those. And then I also have my walking buddies, right? Like, COVID. Can't really do much. And I haven't been seeing anyone, but I have one or two friends that I'm like, can we go for a walk today? And we'll literally go for a 5-mile walk, get all of that out, get that physical activity and come back sweating. And like, that's also really rejuvenating for me.
Yeah.
So yes, do I have that? Absolutely. And I have it in so many different ways.
I love that. Even I feel like that was something that I had read a long time ago that Oprah, you know, I think she's like the beacon and the ideal like the spot but she's like, I have so many coaches and mentors. And if you don't have one, you need to go get one. And it really helps you as an entrepreneur understand that, you know, having a mentor or coach is a good thing because you need to be able to lean on somebody and you need to be able to also ask questions. And asking questions is not wrong. It doesn't make you less of somebody. It just makes you better because you're learning. You're seeking to add knowledge to your life. And I think that's so important. So I love that.
Yes, it's always nice to learn from someone who's already been there, done that.
Yeah.
The ones that like why do we have this like suffering mentality? By the way, it's something I still deal with, right? Again, I'm like, these are things that come with growth and maturity to take to this point, and I'm still working on it. But it is like, we don't have to suffer through the same problems that people had before. That's why like, let them teach you, let them inspire you, let them, you know, help you find that shortcut. There's nothing wrong with shortcuts either.
I completely agree with you. And I also think that like who you surround yourself with is really important with also. If you are, you know, going to somebody in confidence, and you also want to make sure that whoever you're going to is the person that can, 1, not judge you, 2, give you sound advice, and 3, not have any type of jealousy or competition within themselves where there'd be like maybe, you know, leading you astray from what you might or shouldn't be doing. I feel like but that also comes with experience, right? All of that comes with experience.
I agree. And you know, it's funny that you say that because initially, Geerja, that was something that like prevented me from talking about some of the things that I'd be working on, things that I was doing. But something I've learned recently in my life is that when you are vibing at a certain frequency, you are only attracting that certain frequency into your life.
Yeah.
I feel like the women and men that are in my life are exactly where I'm at. You know, I don't think they look at me and they're like, can't let her get ahead of me. Like, you know, and if they are, that vibe is not going to match. That energetic level is not going to match. And we're just not going to be in sync. And it's not going to be something that either of us is going to resonate with. Well, at least I know I won't be able to. And I'm like, this isn't working for me. It used to be really hard for me to like differentiate from that or like, and so instead of being able to differentiate, I just kind of hold back. And now I think I've become more in tune. And as this happens, and you know how you said, like when you have that group of mentors and people around you, you're in that same frequency. Like you're energetic, like vibe, and you don't even end up thinking about it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think going back to the experience, like when you're younger, it's harder because you've not experienced life enough to know, and things have been pretty rosy, you know, up until for the most part. I mean, there are definitely people who go through a lot more challenges at a younger age than not. But I do believe that like as you get older, you also know you've seen life more. You also can understand what vibes with you and what doesn't. And very organically, you end up staying away also. Like it just happened. So I completely agree with you there. So tell me how, I know COVID's happened and I know a lot of brick and mortar, especially bakeries and restaurants have been hit hard. So how have you navigated through this COVID situation that's been happening?
I will start by saying that I am so grateful. I feel like we are, well, okay, let's start with the first start of COVID. I will tell you that I was a disaster. I had no idea what was going on. You know, when you're just like, what just happened? I felt like it happened overnight. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking about it, but like the impact was like overnight, right? Like things are changing. For us, so much of our business, I should, you know, a good 30 to 50% sometimes of our business comes from catering. So, you know, oil and gas events, OTC, like, you know, weddings, quinceañeras, bridal.
All got canceled. Yeah.
Literally. And not just for 2 months, not for 3 months. Oftentimes we're booked for these events a year to 2 years in advance. And so it has been, it was wild the first couple months. So the first couple months, it was like, oh my God, are we open, not open? 2 of our locations were completely shut down. On top of that, you're dealing with landlords to be like, how am I supposed to pay? Like some of the most expensive real estate in Houston, right? And Galleria. Like, it's not like it's cheap. On top of that, I have employees that I take care of. So navigating these loans, I know that you did a segment on EIDLs and PPPs, and thank you for doing that. But it was really tough to sit there and learn all of it while still running the business, still making changes every day. And you're like, oh my God, like, you know, again, this is where relationships come in so handy. I was so fortunate. I have a great relationship with my banker. It was one quick phone call to be like, this is what's happening. He's like, PPP hasn't even come out yet, but when it does, like, I mean, that's how on top of it I was, right?
Because,
and so for us, unfortunately, our rent expenses are far more than our labor expenses because we're in such expensive. And so PPP did not work in our favor in that sense. And then also me, my mom, dad, and brother, who are the key players in our business, we're not on salary. So we weren't on payroll. So that was not a fun whole experience.
Oh my. Yeah.
But that's what it is. So what I will say, our clients, amazing. Literally people came in the first month. They're like, we're still getting a paycheck. We want to make sure you're here when we're done. Like literally they would say that. So business has been good. All of our locations have reopened. Galleria is probably our weakest one, but of course, like not as many people are walking through the malls, which makes sense. But even the ones that are walking through the mall generally may not be like the Macaron demographic. And so our key client, it's been interesting. It's been good in the sense that we're probably luckier than most because we still have that traffic that comes through on a daily basis, and it's enough for us to still keep everyone staffed.
Yeah.
And have our locations running. Okay. Not many people can say that. Now, does that mean I'm going to make money this year? No. But at the end of the day, I think about it. And as long as my family and everyone around me is healthy at the end of this, the rest of all of that can be recovered. My Macaron classes that we used to do monthly on a public level, plus I used to do a lot of privates for companies as team building activities, things like that. Can't happen. So last month I pivoted into my first virtual class.
I love that. Yeah.
A very large number of people that I was not expecting. And it went fabulously. Like it was so great. It felt really nice to engage, albeit it was like digitally. It just felt nice. I do miss the in-person interactions. I naturally, I think, an extroverted person. So we've pivoted that. So I'm having my next Macaron bake class virtually on August 15th. So we're going to do it monthly until we can start doing in person again. And we've started doing team building ones for companies on Zoom now. So I'm getting that back in the group. So it's just a lot of like pivoting, realizing that we weren't going to be doing these mass orders of 2,000 macarons for a wedding, you know?
Right.
We are able to do smaller custom orders. We're doing more flavors. I launched the vegan gelato. So we're getting a little more innovative, what we can offer on a more small scale.
Yeah.
It has changed operations. It feels like I'm back in the day of when I first started the shop because I'm working it in a different way again.
Yeah. I kind of love that though, because you've allowed yourself to have that mindset of growth again, but then also innovation, and you're experimenting. You're not getting scared or hesitant to venture out into areas that might be uncomfortable, but then of course you have to be uncomfortable to grow. But I just love that because you're allowing your company also to experiment. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And you know, you also might see, wow, this is amazing. I should always do this, and just keep it on your menu of services that you provide. So I think that's really neat. And so now that, moving forward, how are you disrupting the industry more? And what are some new changes or things that you're bringing?
Disrupting the industry when it comes to macarons. You know that we do our gelato, and the gelato.
Yes.
And honestly, during COVID, I don't know what happened, but suddenly everyone became very aware of the gelato. I don't know if people were just more like, I'm going to sit at home and eat this all day.
Yeah.
So it's been really good. And so we've been getting more innovative with the flavors. I've gone the vegan route. We're doing a boozy edition.
Oh, I love that.
Actually in my freezer right now behind me.
So can people order that from you, by the way? Can they order online?
Online, we can't ship gelato just yet. We're not there yet. But yes, they can order it online for pickup or delivery. The boozy ones aren't out yet, but I just have a test batch of pina colada in my freezer right now.
Oh, no.
So again, it's been a lot of experimentation. It's been nice to kind of be in the kitchen and do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like with our new flavors, all this like macaron gelato action, I think that has been what's been disruptive in a positive light.
Yeah.
Also being able to do these macaron classes online, like I literally was shocked at where everyone was coming from. We had a lot of Texas. I'd say 50% of the clients were from Texas, but
Mm-hmm.
I had New York, Canada, Nashville. I mean, I even had someone from, was it Barbados? Yeah, like completely wild. So you don't realize, when you're on social media, you don't realize who your reach is. Even if macarons, they're following you, they follow your story, and so it was really cool to connect with people from everywhere, and that was a way that I could do it.
Yeah.
So really cool. And then this year we added the Raksha Bandhan macarons, which we've never done before.
I love that, by the way. The picture so Raksha Bandhan, for everybody listening, is a holiday, a festival in India where you're celebrating the relationship between a brother and a sister. And now in a more modern world is celebrating all relationships, whether you're just a sister, brother. And so Sukaina just came out with this most beautiful macaron that has the image of two hands, and they're tying Rakhi on, which is called this. What would you call that? Like a string that you tie on each other. It's so beautiful.
It was actually Cooks' idea, by the way.
My God, we're shouting out to all my sister-in-laws this time.
She was like, you should consider doing this because a lot of people can't see their siblings this year.
Yeah.
So, things to Rakhi. Anyway, so totally her idea. And then of course my mom's like, well, I'm going to make the laddus myself. So yesterday she was making the laddus from scratch. Anyway.
Which is an Indian sweet dish, and it's pretty phenomenal.
That was another thing. Like, I never thought I would do, like, of course, I'm familiar with Indian culture, but I don't know every single holiday or when it happens. But that's been the other great thing. I feel like with my client base, they've been because they're so engaged, they tell me what they want, right?
Yeah.
So, you work on this, or this flavor is really great. Can you bring it back? I mean, cinnamon roll is officially on the menu for the rest of the year. Like, I give up on getting rid of it because it's just something that everyone kept asking for.
Yeah.
I think your engagement matters so much because your clients will tell you what they want.
Exactly. And I love that. And I love also that you do fusion. You're not just the typical, I don't even know what a typical macaron flavor is, but it's more than just that. You have such beautiful fusion flavors in there. You have a fig and goat cheese, which is absolutely one of my favorite. You have jalebi, which is another Indian dish, but you've incorporated that into the macaron, which you usually bring out during Diwali time, which is the most exciting thing because I know that my husband uses that at his store and we hand them out to our clients there and everybody appreciates it. So I think it's so nice that you are able to tune into your clients, you tune into your audience, which I think is so important for entrepreneurs, is to be aware of their clients and their audience and what they're asking for.
That, and I think also inclusivity, right? So
yes.
I'll do Diwali, I'll do, Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, I do Eid,
yes.
do, Hanukkah, we do Christmas, we do Thanksgiving, we do Halloween. Like we try to do, like we're inclusive of everyone as best as we can. There are times I will tell you in the beginning I was reluctant because I didn't know enough about it. I didn't want to do something that would offend someone. You get kind of shy because you don't want to do something that's going to be pivoted in a negative light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my clients have come in. I can very easily, like if someone messages me for example, the first time we did Hanukkah, like what's an appropriate flavor? What's an appropriate thing? Like I don't want to do something wrong. I want to be sensitive to that. But I think that's what people look forward to. And that's also what keeps us going, right? I mean, there's something that you can love Hallmark or you could hate Hallmark. But the thing that Hallmark does do is it gives us a holiday every month. And that's really does work for us, right? If it's not, at first it's Valentine's Day. After Valentine's Day, it's what's March? St. Patrick's Day. After St. Patrick's Day, we have Easter. We have Mother's Day. Like it doesn't end,
Yeah.
We do try to be innovative for every single one year after year. Like this year we did chocolate bourbon. Like we actually showed you guys smoking the chocolate and, using the bourbon. And it was such a hit for Father's Day that people are like, can we just order this outside of Father's Day? So, we're trying, but it's also because now we have all this time to experiment in very small batches.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's evident. It's evident in the product line that you have, and it's evident in how you're also showcasing yourself on social media, because I think that also really represents the company and the business and their mindset. And so I think it's so cool. I mean, I know that you, at one time, you had your macarons at grocery stores also here in Houston. And, I don't know if you're still doing the franchising part of your business. Is that still there? But
yeah, we're a franchise. It's available to franchise. I will be honest with you. I'm not it is hard to find the right partner to work with.
Yeah.
Maybe it's me. Maybe it's like totally me. Maybe I'm too much of a control freak, but to find someone so for the last 8 years, it's been my face. It's me representing the company. And then to hand it off to someone and be like, you are going to take care of this one. Like, it's a little scary. There was a couple people that I interviewed that I felt might've been good fits. Things just didn't go the way that we wanted. Right now, it hasn't been something that's been on my mind to really grow in that capacity. Our online sales have really gone up, especially during COVID. And I think that's an aspect of the business that I want to continue to grow.
Yeah. And you do deliver macarons, right? Like you can mail them out, ship them out.
We ship them across the United States nationwide. And so that's really picked up because people, even for Raksha Bandhan, most of our orders are being shipped out. Like
that's awesome.
So it is exciting. It's exciting to see someone open a package in a completely different part of the country and be like, oh my God, macaron. But I don't know. I get excited still to this day.
I think that's exciting. I mean, actually Raksha Bandhan's coming on Monday. Yeah. And so, this will not be aired before then, but I'll have all your contact information in the show notes anyway, so people can absolutely get everything that they want from you. So, but going back to franchising, I think you're right. You have to be able to allow the branding that you have has to evolve a little bit with franchising, because you're giving away a part of your business to somebody else. And, not only just the control, because you're controlling ultimately the main brand, the main name, but at the end of the day, if you're franchising, everybody represents you differently. And I mean, it's like going to different McDonald's and the service you get. The food's going to be the same, the service won't be. And that can be a make it or break it situation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, I think at this point, I just don't feel like, I don't know, I think I've gotten used to this autonomous way of doing things. Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, we kind of feel like doing Raksha Bandhan. Like if it was a franchise, I'd have to make sure all the stores can get it and they get it at the same time. We can't have them at one location and not the other.
Yeah.
All of that logistic part right now, at least because of COVID, especially, I'm enjoying the freedom to kind of do what I want when I want, right? Like, wanting a flavor, I launch it. Like it's not a prescribed method. If one of my clients is like, oh my God, Sukaina, I really want passion fruit back right now. I'm like, sure, let's go ahead and make a batch and we'll sell it for the next week. It's just a different way of doing business. And right now I think I'm kind of happy in this element of doing it in a spontaneous way rather than a very rigid, structured way. Cause I think it does kind of hinder your creativity a little bit too. Showing the laxness of it.
Yeah, I see that. So I wanted to ask you that right now, we've talked about all the growth that you've had, the challenges that you've faced, and kind of talked a little bit about the legal challenges that you had, but this is Law Chat, so I'm going to have to highlight that a little bit more. So tell me, what are some of the legal issues or legal lessons that you wish you had taken care of before you started or wish you had known before?
There's a lot of them. Paperwork. I don't know how you guys do what you do. There's just so much reading and writing and underlining and crossing out. And it's a lot of verbiage. And sometimes it's verbiage that as an educated person, you think you can understand, but in legal terms, you can't. Your language, I speak a different language, though it's English. It's different. This meant this. No, it does not, because whatever. Anyway, you get my so I will say, when we were signing our leases, when we were getting contracts done, things like that, that was all very daunting. It took me weeks to like send it to my attorney, blackline this, send it back, blackline this. You know, and some things just aren't negotiable from like a landlord's, like, you know, you're a small business. I don't really have that much leverage, let's be real, you know? And so it's really important to have someone on your side that can really highlight the things that could be very bad for you. Because there's going to be some bad for you, but you can't get out of. But then the ones where I need someone to be like, Sukaina, do not agree to this term. And then that way I can put my foot down for that one or two things to make sure that I protected myself. So I feel like protecting yourself is super important. That's something that I didn't really do very well. The other aspect of it is things when it comes to your employees, right? Things that I didn't really think about, having these really defined employee handbooks, or even like my non-competes and NDA. Those are things that like I literally like drafted up to later on find out totally not enforceable in the terms that I created. Oh yeah, you're non-compete. They were like, Sukaina, no, not going to stand in court. Now, there are ways to make it work, but I needed someone who's done this before to be able to do it. As a new business owner and someone that's like that's operating initially as like a mom and pop shop, I literally let me see if I can find a template online and try it to work. But you know, and that's why what you do right now for businesses is so important, because I didn't have options like you. I only had options. I don't even think there are other options other than you, to be honest, in this capacity, because the only other options are the big corporate attorneys that literally charge like $500 an hour. I was like, I'll just draft this myself with a legal Zoom or whatever I can find. Terrible. Same thing with like LLCs or how to structure them. Like, you know, we have 3 locations. Some people like, we should have done it this way. Some people tell me I should have done it another way, whatever. Those are things I wish that I would have sat down with somebody that I trusted, that understood small business, not on a corporate level, but also someone that understood my personal business and took the time to understand it, because my business is a little different than another small business. And it's, you know, so what you do, like you weren't around when I, like not in this capacity.
In this capacity, yeah.
You weren't. I mean, you were doing like crazy cases at that time, but in this capacity you weren't. And so I think that that's something that most business owners should kind of look at and get like set in from the start, because the last thing you want is an employee to come back and you have like a claim on you and you're like, oh, well, I had it in this employee handbook. Where's your employee handbook? Well, it's right here. Well, none of this is actually like correct. And realize that there's a legal point to all of this.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for saying that, actually. And thank you for your compliments as well. They're always appreciated. But yeah, I feel like there are a lot of things that sometimes as small businesses we avoid, and we will tackle them as they come. But then later on, you might be paying a higher price than you would be in the front end if you just tackled it at that time. And so, yes, you're right. I try to make it, I try to educate, you know, the small business owners, because there's a lot at stake as a small business owner. You're not this big corporation that, you know, has funding coming from other places. And so there's a lot at stake. Like how you said earlier, failure is not an option, meaning you have a lot at stake. You can't just give up. Giving up is not an option, right? You can't just say, peace out, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, if that doesn't work, then you have to do it a different way. So I just try to make sure that the stress of law is taken care of. I'll take care of that stress for you. So
big stress. And then the other aspect of it, I will say, is most attorneys, like dentists, don't really like going to them. I'll be honest. When you think of a lawyer, you kind of like sit back and you're like, oh my God, not one, the bill's going to be crazy high. And 2, I'm not going to understand what they're saying. Like they're in a different world. It's a little bit impersonal. It feels like, you know, and it's really rare to find someone like you who can actually be personable and give it to us in layman's terms. That was another thing, right? Like it's hard to understand. It's not every. Just like I could sit there and talk about macaronage and, you know, the humidity of the macaron and the pH. Like, yeah, I get that. Other people will get it, but you're not. In the same terms, you're going to get things that I'm not going to get. And I think sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs, we do feel like we can do everything, right? And that is one of our qualities that makes us so great at being entrepreneurs. But I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is give people what they're good at and let them handle it so that you can focus on what you're good at.
Yeah, delegation is key. It is key.
Super hard, but key.
Yeah, super hard, but key. So one more quick question before we move on to our fun fact round. But so when you are trying to make big decisions, whether it's a pivot, whether it is adding or not adding a certain product to your product line, or, any other decisions, how do you make those decisions? Like, is there a process you go through, or do you use instinct, or is it a mix of both?
Okay. I think, again, I am very much in touch with who my target client is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it requires a lot for me to know what they want. Now, whether that flavor is going to be a hit or a bust will be told by them. But when it comes to like hiring, firing, growth, development, franchising, opening another location, honestly, it's been based on demand. I feel like there's always a trigger, right? Like, why am I even thinking about this? So if the trigger is there, is this a trigger that is temporary, or is it a trigger that's me long-term? Is usually what I think about, right? Is this just a trend, or is this something that is going to be able to be sustained over a long period of time? Is this just a hip area right now, but we'll lose its hipness later? Like you think about those things. And then the second is obviously the cost analysis. Like I'm a very much a pros, cons, numbers person. I usually put that all out. And then the final say always goes to my gut. Always. Yeah. That's taken me a long time to hone into, but I think it's important. And I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit when it comes to that. And when we start to second guess our gut is when we probably are going to end up in the wrong direction. And so the final say is done by my gut.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I know listeners out there, including me, it's just always nice to know how other people do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it definitely helps in just getting that insight, which is also wonderful. You shared such amazing insight today. And now we're just going to go to some fun fact rounds. For example, what is your favorite book?
Okay. I should have actually thought about these. I don't have just one favorite book. Like I love reading. And so I'm right now, sometimes I'm like, I love fiction. Like I love those cheesy rom-com, Griffin's books, like Something Bored, Something Blue, like from back.
Awesome. I've read them all. Yeah.
Like love that stuff,
Yeah.
And then of course I read, Untamed recently from Glennon Doyle. Like I did all of that, but I also love like some business books or strategy books.
And then what is your favorite podcast or blog?
I am a nerd and I actually listen to a lot of podcasts that are like very much about like brain neuroscience and like called The Brain Podcast, which I really like. There's also another one that's called #NoFilter. It's really raw. It's Julie Lauren.
Yeah.
Here in Houston and now lives elsewhere. But I just find her to be really raw and real. And she's just really entertaining to listen to. So those walks sometimes, she's definitely someone I like to listen to.
Oh, nice. And what are some favorite biz tools or apps that you use?
Instagram.
I'm like, email app?
I really don't use a lot of apps. I don't use extra apps other than like my social media to post what I'm doing. I mean, I don't really have any other apps. I don't know.
Speaking of Instagram and social media, so how can we find you? Where is the best place to find you? Where do you hang out? How do we order?
At Macaron by Patisse, literally. It's long, but Macaron by Patisse, on Instagram. It's connected to Facebook. I have a personal page called Sweet Sukaina, which has nothing on it yet, but it'll evolve in the next couple months. Hopefully you'll see. But that's where I'm at.
Awesome. And then anybody can come and sign up for your online classes and then also order macarons from you, right?
Yes. So on the website, you can do curbside pickup, you can do delivery, you can ship nationwide, and yes, anyone can sign up for the virtual classes. I
need to order some for Raksha Bandhan, so that's what I'm going to be doing right after this conversation. Well, thank you so much. We have had such a great time. I've had such a great time talking to you, chatting with you, learning so much about the business and also just what entrepreneurship looks like through your eyes. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thank you, Gerja. You're always such a pleasure.
I love you.
Thank you so much for joining Law Chat with Gerja. I love these kind of stories and conversations where we can be real, honest, and open, and having fun at the same time. I hope you are inspired and motivated to keep doing the amazing work you are doing. If this is something that gave you all those feels and then some, truly motivated and inspired for you, you can show your love in all or one of these ways. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video with your community and tell them about it, or share with somebody that can benefit from it. I look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of Law Chat, and until then, keep moving forward. Bye.